Hey everybody, welcome to episode 5 of Learning with Leary, presented by TheFloatLife. I'm your host, Jake Leary, and today I'm going to give you guys some tips on trail riding on your Onewheel. On dirt trails, your tire isn't going to have as much traction as it does on pavement. So before you hit that single track that's littered with rocks and roots and has a 70-foot cliff on one side, practice carving on a nice wide open and smooth area to test out the limits of your tire at different speeds. You'll notice that when you're leaning onto the edge of your tire, it feels a little different on dirt and has a bit more tendency to slip than it does on pavement. This is totally controllable, just means you have to be a little more careful when you push the limits of the tire. Some trail surfaces are harder packed than others. For example, you'll probably notice the biggest reduction in traction on gravel or trails that are covered in leaves. Wet trails are pretty sketch. I'd really recommend sticking to dry conditions if you're new to trail riding. The lack of traction on the road surface actually allows you to take advantage of a type of turning that you don't really use much on pavement and is completely separate from leaning to the toe or the heel edge. I call this rotational turning, where your tire breaks traction with the ground in order to rotate. This can be done with or without your traditional turning by leaning. The easiest way to get started with this technique is at really low speeds, and you might want to practice it stationary at first to get the hang of it. At low speeds, this technique is sort of like a tic-tac in skateboarding, and mastering it will help you get through technical rock gardens and tricky hill climbs. The main thing to remember is that your upper body leads and then your legs follow. So if you want to rotate your board to the left, wind your arms up to the right, and then unwind your arms to the left, and then follow through by whipping your legs to the left. This technique absolutely carries over to high-speed riding. You just can't rotate the board to the same degree, because if you're going fast and you spin the board 90 degrees, it's just going to stop and you'll fly forward. If you look here, I'm coming into a toe side turn, and at the last minute, I realize that I'm going to have to hit a bump. Now, I don't want to hit the bump while I'm leaning hard, so I straighten out to hit the bump straight, which makes me swing wide in my turn. But as I square up, my upper body rotates backside, which then carries through to my legs, bringing me right back on track where I need to go. Turning backside, I hope you remember from episode 3, is going to make it way more dangerous if I fall, but I have confidence here, especially at the speed that I'm going, so I'm totally okay with turning backside to get my board back on track. Looking at the road surface ahead of you is an important part of any ride, and on trails, the farther ahead you can look, the faster you can safely go. You need to keep a little bit of attention on branches and things sticking out at body or eye level, but mainly you want to focus on the trail surface, constantly. Every single inch of trail that your tire rolls over should have already been checked with your eyes to see if it's smooth. The smoother the trail, the farther ahead you can look. As it gets rocky, you'll notice that you'll catch up to where you're looking because you'll need to make decisions about which lines to pick. For example, let's say there's a big rock in the trail. Do you go to the left, to the right, or bonk straight over it? If you see the rock 15 feet ahead of time, you have 15 feet or less to make your decision. The further ahead you've been looking, the more time you give yourself to decide, and as you approach and you're deciding, it can often be helpful to continue looking forward to see what's coming up next after that rock. You only want your board to catch up to your eyes if it's a difficult maneuver that you need to focus on entirely. One of the most common decisions you'll have to make on the trail is whether to swerve around an obstacle or bonk right over it. Here, I swerved around to the right, but I can also go straight and take the drop. If you're going to do a drop, a bonk, or a steep descent, it's really important to scope out your landing to make sure that you can roll away clean. If you're swerving to navigate around rock gardens, try and keep in mind that if the side of the bumper hits a rock, you'll probably be okay. But if the side of the tire hits a rock, it's gonna be a lot harder to recover. As we just saw, sometimes you hit a bump that knocks your feet out of position. I sort of glazed over this in the hitting bumps episode, but one of the reasons to square up and make your body symmetrical is to help keep your feet in place. Having said that, you always need to be aware of your foot position. And if a foot becomes airborne, you need to use your muscles to try and keep that foot in place. Having a grippy grit on your grip tape is only going to keep your feet locked in if your shoes are physically touching the grip tape. As soon as that foot gets airtime, it's completely free to move in any direction, and keeping it on the foot pad is all you. If your foot shifts, stay calm, and if you're confident, do a little jump back into position. If you're not confident, it's probably better to just bail off your board. Another note on safety: don't underestimate the value of slowing down. If you're approaching a tough section, slow down before you hit it so that you can get a good look. The one exception would be going up a steep hill, because it's always a lot less dangerous to go up than down, and you're gonna need to approach with some speed to get up those tough climbs. If you're riding with a group, try and keep some distance between yourself and the other riders, unless you're confident in both your abilities and the abilities of the riders in front and behind you. If you approach a steep section, don't be afraid to slow down and let the person in front of you get a good distance ahead, so that if they bail, you don't crash right into them. If you're worried about slowing down people behind you, just pull over a little bit and let them pass. It's pretty common for people of varying abilities to ride together, and the faster riders should know to stop and wait up for you anytime there's a fork in the road. Lastly, I'm going to talk about trail etiquette. You should always be courteous when you're passing hikers, and if you hear mountain bikers coming to pass you, try and get over to the side of the trail if it's safe to do so. Make sure you know if the trails are one-way or two-way. The one thing I've seen one-wheelers do that makes me cringe is trying to make it over the top of a steep ramp or pump track, getting stuck at the top, and having their tire burn out and basically dig a tire-sized hole in the ramp. These trail systems are generally built and maintained by mountain bikers who volunteer their time to do heavy manual labor, and they'll be pretty pissed if they see you do this. So if there are any man-made features like jumps, berms, or pump tracks, err on the side of jumping off and picking up your board instead of getting stuck on your sensor pad and damaging the trails. One-wheeling is a brand new sport, and most trail systems do not yet have rules either allowing or prohibiting one-wheels. We are the ambassadors, and it's up to us to show that we are responsible enough to ride on trails, most of which have already banned motorized dirt bikes. If you see people building or maintaining the trail systems you ride, you should definitely introduce yourself, make friends, and see if there's a way you can help out. 99% of the mountain bikers I see on the trails are super friendly and excited to see a one-wheel, and it shouldn't be very hard to keep it this way. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching, guys. If this is the first Learning with Leary you've seen, check out the previous episodes. Every single one so far mentions something specifically about trail riding. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments section below. And until next time, float on, my friends.
You stoked to go ride? I'm stoked to go ride. I'm gonna go ride. You should too. But if you're not, definitely subscribe to our channel or check out one of these two videos. I'm gonna go get my stride on.